here. All right.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming to the second Emma Skillshare.
Yeah.
So we got Glenn and Ramsey, the other members of the Emma Technology Cooperative, are here with us. Hello. So we got, and we are going to be doing a little Skillshare on a. I don't necessarily know how useful I'd call it, but a very fun feature of Pico8, which is that with a little finagling, you can get it to talk to JavaScript. Which is weird. It's a weird thing that you can talk to JavaScript, but it's fun, and it lets you do. Which is weird. It's a weird thing that you can talk to JavaScript, but it's fun. Just a heads up. Which is weird. It's a weird thing that you can talk to. Gwen, is my screen being shared right now?
Yes. Or sorry, no. gotta drive OBS.
Yeah.
No,
I know you're just
when you're ready, we can jump in. If you're ready, we'll jump in.
No, hit it. Yeah, let's do the thing.
You are live.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. So, I have a little text file open here. If you want to follow along, and there is no pressure to do this, but if you want to, you can go to tinyurl.com/pico8-gpio, because we are using the GPIO pins to do this. And that'll just go to a GitHub repo that has, first of all, the code I'm going to write here, as well as some links to some stuff if you want to follow along. If you just want to watch me do things, that's also fine. But the reason I mention that is the kind of project that got me checking this out and curious about it was this little thing I made called Pico Pond. So I don't know if the other members of Emma or anyone in the chat wants to just go ahead and go to that link. I think it's the first one in the tinyurl repo. You know what? I can check really quickly.
The link is also in our YouTube description.
Hey, how about that? Yeah, the Pico Pond demake. So this was a demake of Frog Chorus by V. Buckingham and Vivian Schwartz, which is really, really cool anyway. And it was my little networked Pico8 game. So if you've played Frog Chorus, you should, by the way. It's a lot of fun. It is linked to on this page as well. You just get frog, and when you hold down a key, it rings. And the fun thing about this is a networked Pico8 game. If anyone else happens to go to this link, I don't know that anyone will, but if someone does, another frog will show up, and we each have control of our own frog. Just imagine if there were other frogs hanging out here.
Now I really want to frog it up. Hold on.
Yeah. Click the link. It'll be good.
Yeah,
Oh, you're busy, Glenn. You got a lot going on. So the game I'm going to let Ramsey mouse on over here. The little thing we're going to make today is not going to be networked. This has a Heroku backend that is talking to with WebSockets. Oh, there's another frog. We can rib it together. So hold down X or Z. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, we got the little ones. It's great. But what's cool about this is once you get Pico8 talking to JavaScript, you can do whatever. In this one, I was like, let me ping a Heroku server, but you can do anything. Here's someone else. Very cool. I realize that I'm also just assuming everyone knows what Pico8 is, and that might not be the case. Pico8 is a fantasy console for making little games and things, kind of in the vein of like a Commodore 64. So it's something between a Commodore 64 and an NES. You just script it with Lua. It's got its own self-contained thing. It's really a lot of fun. People use it to make all sorts of very cool games. Back when Twitter was still a fun thing to be on, I used to make little, they call them tweet carts, like 280 character sketches. So there's tons of cool stuff you can do with Pico8, including getting it to talk to JavaScript. So the way this works is with this very interesting feature of Pico8, the GPIO pins. So I'm not going to stay on documentation pages for too long here, but the GPIO pins was for the Raspberry Pi and this thing Pocket Chip, where it's basically just a way for you to like read from hardware and have it affect your Pico8 games. This is really cool. It's a very fun thing they added. And it literally, there's just a range in memory. So in the Fantasy console, there's a range of memory that is dedicated to these pins and is just otherwise not used. Pico8 has a pretty old school approach to things. Let's see if it'll show me right here. Yes. And so you can literally just peek or poke into any old place in memory in Pico8 and just access what's there or write something else there. Obviously, if you just start poking at random stuff, you are going to break things quickly. But this is an exciting feature of older computers, and so of course Pico8 includes it. What it means is that it's pretty easy for us from Pico8 to look at or set the value of this range of memory. Of course, what's hard is that we then need to access it from something else. And although this was designed for the Raspberry and the Pocket chip, as it says here, you can actually just get this from JavaScript. You literally, in some JavaScript that lives on the same page as your web build for Pico8, you just make an array that has this exact name and a length of 128, and you're good. That's kind of it. It's wild how simple it is. Also notable, 128 bytes is absolutely huge for Pico8. It is a really big range of memory. I'm not really sure why it's so big, but it lets you do a lot. To do a very quick history lesson on this, I think this post on the Pico8 BBS was the first time anything like this was mentioned. This is by Ito99 in 2016. It wasn't a documented feature yet, but this person figured out a way to sort of poke into memory from JavaScript. It's cool is there are some people further in the thread, like Fane Alden here, who knew from an announcement from something else that the next version of Pico8 was going to have GPIO ports. Is like a very fun little moment there. And then where I became really aware of it was this amazing post from this person, Celeb, which is in the repo I linked to as well, who made a functional Twitter client in Pico8. It no longer works because, of course, it doesn't. But in addition to just doing something very cool, they had really good source code that they posted and made available, as well as this really great BBS post just kind of describing exactly how to do this with, frankly, a much more complex project than I was using. So if this is of interest to you, if you want to make your own thing, this post by Celeb that is linked in that repo is so handy and useful. I definitely would not have been able to make Pico Pond if not for this post. Okay, so without further ado, here's what we're going to make. It's going to be really quick and dirty because I don't want to spend a ton of time making things look nice. We are going to make a really simple Pico8 Dodger game, the bones of which I already have in place. Look, I move the circle, I dodge the things. Very exciting. But there are a few HTML elements over here. I have a slider that I can use to change the color of my circle in Pico8. And I've got this no CSS score display that tells me what my score is. Score starts at 1 because it was slightly easier to write that way. And that's it. Pretty straightforward, but again, I don't want this to take a ton of time. Once you have broken out into JavaScript, sky's the limit, do what you want, you can get wild with it. We're going to stay pretty simple and just use a total of 3 of the 128 pins available to us. Any questions from folks in the room? Folks on the stream? Members of Emma?
My brain is melting at the usage of GPIO as like inter-process communication. That is such a fucking cool.
Peeking and poking into JavaScript is sort of diabolical.
So
I mean,
wild.
it's really worth noting you are not peeking and poking into JavaScript.
Yeah.
Well,
In
you
quotes.
sort of are, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's that. You were definitely peeking and poking into Pico8, but that's a regular thing to do anyway, because Pico8 is a lot of fun. I know it's a virtual console, but like you can really mess up your, you can turn it off and just restart it to fix it, but like you can get wild stuff to happen if you do it randomly.
Yeah, works on retro consoles too.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my little demo project. Here's the bare bones of it. It's basically what you saw before. I'm just running it in Pico8 now. Just for sake of completeness, I am going to quickly go through the Pico8 code that's here before we make it do anything with JavaScript, just so like you have a sense of what's happening. It's really dirt simple. You don't have to follow along that closely. It's a Dodger game. You've seen them. You've probably made one. We've got a few variables to handle the player's position, and this one for player color. Oh, ho, ho. I wonder if we'll do anything with that. We've got a few variables to handle the position, speed, and size of the obstacle that's falling down. We have a score and just a Boolean to tell us if we're playing or not. Right now, the init function is empty. I have this other function called start game. I think anytime you press X, it will just run this, sets the score to 0, sets playing to true, blah, 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 resets the obstacle. In update, I'm seeing if the reset button was pressed. In game update, I am moving the player if the buttons are pressed. I am moving the obstacle. And then I'm just checking if the player and the obstacle touch. Not the most exciting game in the world, but you gotta start somewhere. The draw function is very simple, clears the screen, draws the player. If we're playing, it draws the obstacle. If we're not playing, it just draws some text telling you how to start the game. And then there's just kind of a standard issue distance function. That's all we've got right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make a web build and then create some JavaScript to live in there. So here's where this is on my computer right now. I'm going to exit out. Oh, by the way, that's the last time we're going to be looking at Pico8 code in the Pico8 virtual console, because I think it's really hard to look at, but it seemed like I would do it once. So let's go ahead and export a web build of this game I just made. So I'm going to say export index.html. Pico8 does its usual thing, gives me the web page I asked for and some pre-made JavaScript to deal with it. So if I were to call this up right now, we just get the exact game we saw, nothing else. All right, we don't really need to take a look, but let's, if we now open it in a normal editor, we see here is the index.html generated. There is a lot of stuff in there. We're going to worry about very, very little of it. And then there is the index.js, which actually has the game. We're not touching this at all. And then over here, jsdemo.p8. This is the Pico8 file that I just showed you in Pico8, but now it is in a text editor that I prefer. So first things first, I'm going to make a new JavaScript file for us to talk to. So new file, I will call it main.js. And in this file, I'm going to set it up to start listening for one of our pins. So first, I'll do that array that you need to have, var pico8 underscore GPIO equals new array 128. It has to be this name. This is the exact name it's looking for. If you don't give it this name, it won't work. And I'm going to start defining some pins. I'm going to say that pin 1 is what we are going to use to tell if the Pico8 cart has started. We'll be adding a few more pins as we go, but I'm going to start with that one. You have 128 to use. This totally could start on 0 as well. I don't know, for some reason I decided to start on 1. And I'm going to create a little function here called update. I'm going to just run update on a set interval. Oh, for the folks watching at home, I'm going to disclaim my JavaScript right now. It's probably going to be ugly JavaScript. You can write better JavaScript. You totally should write better JavaScript.
There's no such thing as good JavaScript. So
Yeah. I just mean, I know the way I set things up is like not what JavaScript people want to see. So it's all the more reason for you to try this at home and do it yourself. All right, so every 100 milliseconds, we're going to run update. And the first thing I want to do is just check if the cart has started. Pico8 carts don't start the moment you load the page. You have to hit the play button. It plays this little Pico8 jingle and like runs some stuff. So we kind of don't want to do anything until we know the cart has started. And this is a good example of how to start using that input-output information. So what I'm going to do is in update, I'm going to check if, first of all, going to do let cart has started equals false. And in our little update, if the cart has not started yet, and Pico8 GPO pin start equals 1, good news, that means the cart has started. And we can go ahead and just flip that to true. This is where we're eventually going to do some setup stuff as well. But for now, we'll just do like this. I'm going to go ahead and put this into the index.html, but it is worth noting this isn't going to do anything right now because we're never actually setting that pin in our Pico8 sketch. But, got to start somewhere.
Are they all 0 initially?
They are unknown initially.
Oh, it's undefined?
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Oh my God! They're really fantasizing about hardware.
It's a good question. Yeah, no, it's unknown initially.
Undefined is that's.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Perfect.
All right, so at the top of index here, I'm just gonna do script type equals text / JavaScript source equals main.js. And that should do it. Why is it mad? What did I do wrong? Oh, yeah, I did a weird thing. Cool. All right, so if I go ahead and run this page right now, the console open, really all we'll see, if I did it right, is just all the Pico8 stuff and kind of nothing else. I have this update thing running every so often, but it's never going to flip to the cart having started because I'm never writing to that data. In fact, to your question, Ramsey, because it's kind of fun to see, I can print out this value. So there's Pico8 GPO pin start, so it's going to be 1. If I run this, undefined. Yeah, we don't know what the hell that is.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
But I mean, we do know it hasn't been set.
Yeah. So it's kind of like it's like a trinary state almost, where there's like it can be true, false, or like I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, well, and in this case, it's not even. It's much more than true or false. Like it's. I'm just using numbers here. I probably could just set it to true or false, but I feel like it's easiest to just kind of use ints for this wherever possible. Cool. So in theory, our game is now looking for something. The other dumb thing I'm going to do right here is that index.html, I edited it to add our JavaScript. If I export from Pico8 again, it will be overwritten, which is annoying. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate index and make it index safe. I'm going to stop editing index.html. And from here on out, I am just editing index safe. And then I will just copy it so that I don't lose all the stuff I've done, although I'm not editing this very much. All right. I'm going to head back to my Pico8 cart, and we're going to get this to start talking to JavaScript. So again, this is exactly the cart I showed you in Pico8. It's just now I'm going to add some new variables to it. My comments are probably going to have tons of typos, just, heads up, same as my bad JavaScript. And I'm going to make pin start equals 1. It is really important to make sure that you are using the same pin indexes in Pico8 and JavaScript. If you're not, bad stuff will happen because you just like checking the wrong thing. So when I'm doing this, I like to literally just give them the same name and the same value, and then I don't have to think about it too much. In the init function for my cart, I am now going to tell the JS that we are ready. And to do that, I am going to poke a point in memory and set the value. What point in memory? I'm not going to try to type it. I'm going to go grab it from the wiki. I'm going to take the start of the range of memory that Pico8 cares about for this. I'm going to poke that, and I'm going to offset it by the pin I care about.
I'm losing my entire mind watching you do this.
Pointer math. That's what my games need more of.
Yeah, that
This
means we're doing real computing.
is like reinventing the like Ford Model T on the like International Space Station.
Yeah, but instead of doing
Assembling
something useful, is to do whatever this is.
Oh my god, I love it. It's so good.
So when this runs, and like I said, and it's not going to run the moment the page starts, and it runs when my cart starts, which is after I press play and after Pico8 does its little thing. It's going to write that point in memory in Pico8 to be 1 instead of undefined. And at the same time, our JavaScript array will be updated as well. So in our next update loop, we should catch it. So let me go back to Pico8. I'm going to load JS demo. That is the script I just wrote. If you write Pico8 script in an outside editor, you need to actually load it into the console before it'll do anything. I'll press run just to make sure I didn't break anything. Cool, looks great. And I'm going to export index.html. I am going to overwrite, but it's fine because I have the version I actually care about. So I'll just go ahead and actually, I can just keep running this from index safe. That's fine.
Because there's nothing like that should be the same.
Yeah,
file,
it's
like,
totally the same file. I think since it changes the JS, I didn't want to mess with that. You can probably come up with more clever ways to do this, but frankly, I don't care. So I'm just going to be editing index safe. And you can see now in my console, I don't know how small it is. You can see it now says cart started, which means the JavaScript was able to successfully see that that pin changed and that we're doing something now.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that is going to kind of become our initialization moment for the rest of the JavaScript we're going to do. Is that when we like first find it, then we can do stuff. This is also where you could like, have certain functionality happen or not happen based on if your cart is actually ready. Since again, it doesn't happen the moment the page is loaded. And in fact, it won't happen at all until there's deliberate user interaction. So you kind of can't count on that.
Right.
All right. Let's go ahead and add a color slider. That was in the demo I showed somewhere.
Yep.
This little slider to change our color. I'm going to add that to this project. So I will go ahead, open my index file, which again has tons and tons of stuff. But there is actually, thankfully, a note somewhere around, was it line 1015? From me, could be different for you. But there is this nice little comment in this massive generated HTML file that's any content above the cart here. And so that is a useful place to be like, this is where I'm going to start messing around.
Yeah,
So
it's real classy of them to have like a well commented like output like this. It's like it's not like minified or like made gross. This is so clearly designed to like be hacked on, which is super cool.
Totally. I mean, you see that mentality with a lot of Pico8. My quotes are being awful right now. So much of Pico8 is totally designed, to be hacked on and messed with. And it's a delight to use as a result. So I am not surprised that this is kind of consistent with that ideology. So what am I doing here? I am just making a very simple HTML slider, and I'm giving it the name slider because it's nope, that is the class, my bad. The ID is going to be color slider. Not that I'm making any other sliders, but I don't know. That felt nicer to me. Let me make this just a little bit wider. So very simple. It's just going to be input. It's a range. We are going from 0 to 15. Savvy viewers will recognize that as the number of colors in the basic Pico8 color palette. I'm giving it a starting value. It doesn't really matter, whatever. So I'll just save this. Go back to Chrome, make sure it's working.
Yep.
Cool, slider. It doesn't do anything. That's fine. In JavaScript here, I am going to go ahead and add a second const pin color.
Mhm.
I'm just going to go right up the tree. We got 128 pins to use. We're not even going to get close. Pico8, for what it's worth, uses a lot of them for the number of players that you can have. Each player is represented by just a single numerical value because that was easy. That celeb post actually talks about some very cool ways to, when you have way more data coming in, to use like a control pin to basically tell which it's JavaScript's turn to write or Pico8's turn to write.
Oh my
Just
god.
describing a serial protocol.
Yeah, I mean, that's like,
RS232.
that's what it is, right? That's why this is a hobbyist thing, is because we're just reinventing stuff that exists. Like,
Yeah.
if only there was a way to talk to JavaScript. Thank God we have Pico8 to do that.
but like talking between languages is like hard, and like a lot of like, you know, grown-up programming languages just fumble it and like don't do it right. So it's just kind of wild to see a like 1982 we had it figured out.
We
Totally.
did it
I
right
mean,
the
one of
first
the-
time.
It is kind of fun, right? They're like to do the like really simple version and be like, oh yeah, this is like how it works, like on a basic level.
Yeah.
So okay, I am going to go in where I've recognized the cart and found it, and that's where I'm going to go ahead and also figure out where the hell my color slider is. So I'll say let color slider equal document dot get element by ID color slider. And I'm just going to say that color slider, whenever we mess with its value, we'll just go ahead and write to that pin. So on input equals function Pico8 GPO pin color equals this dot value. And just to help me know if I have actually done it, I am just going to print out.
So the range of values on the pins is 0 to 255?
Yes. I'm almost certain about that. Let me double check, but I'm like pretty certain.
Oh, yeah. If you
Yeah,
scroll
it's
down the bottom.
bytes, so yeah.
Yeah. But it said in hardware implementations, they'll just be 0 and 1. But in JavaScript, you have a full byte, which is kind of cool.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
Yeah, in
you're
hardware
totally right.
implementations,
Yep.
act digitally. Yeah, that's really
0
interesting.
to 255. Yep.
Wow. Cool.
Okay, so let's see if this slider is in fact like if I got the element ID right. Oh, right. It has to actually see that the cart has mounted.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Neat. All right. So now we had Pico8 setting a pin and having JavaScript read it. We're going to go in the other direction. In my Pico8 cart, I'm going to go ahead and first, again, just duplicate that pin value. You can be as clever or as stupid with this stuff as you want. I am opting to be very stupid because it is simple. And then what I'm going to want to do is I am going to want to make it so the player color in update changes based on what that is. So I'll say update player color. And I'll just take my player color value, which I previously just set to 8. And instead, I'm going to say that player color equals peak. So poke was to write something to memory. Peak is to read. Again, I am not going to try to just type that out. I'm just going to copy and paste it. That is the beginning of our memory dedicated to the GPIO. And I am just going to advance it to pin color.
Right.
Now, the other thing I want to do here is I actually, in init, want to poke this one as well. And the reason for that is this initially has no value. It's undefined. And so if my JavaScript doesn't get to it first, I don't want to accidentally set my player color to an undefined value.
Yeah.
So as soon as the cart starts, I am just going to poke that part of memory and just set 8, which I think is red, whatever color the circle is. Should know this. Just so we have something there when this tries to read. You could come up with a much more complex system to like make sure things are set to know that they're ready and there. But in this case, it's sort of just easier for us to just put something in there and then let JavaScript take over after that. So I'm going to save that. I will load it into Pico8, run just to make sure there's nothing immediately wrong. Okay. And then I will export it once again. Yeah, I don't really need to delete index. I'm just going to ignore it. So if I refresh my page here, hopefully now, yeah.
Oh my God.
So now as I drag this slider around, it writes to that point in memory, and Pico8 will pull from it. And I can play my game now with customization options. If you're really clever, you can move the thing while changing the color, but it's hard.
That's a pro gamer move.
It's that's the 360 no scope of this Pico8 demo.
That's
so yeah, I mean,
that's wild.
This is you now kind of have both directions. I just want to quickly show to have something that is regularly being updated, just writing the score. Yeah. But at this point, we are technically going in both directions. Pico8 is flipping one thing that JavaScript is looking for, the start pin. And JavaScript is messing with something that Pico8 is looking for, which is the color pin. And it is worth noting, it is good that I set that color in init as well, because the way I wrote this, even once I start, the JavaScript has not written to that pin yet, because it actually only is writing to the pin when this value changes. So that would be an unknown value, an unassigned value if I don't do that first. So it is good anytime you're planning to read from Pico8, just like write something to the points in memory that you're using.
Yeah, I imagine you could even just walk that whole range or whatever subset of the range of memory you're using and just set it to 0 and be like, okay, everything has a coherent value, and like we can sort of go from there if we want to.
Totally. I mean, it wouldn't be crazy for you to just be like, oh boy, I haven't written a for loop in Lua in a minute. Sorry, everybody. This might be right. I'm not sure.
It looks right to me.
Oh, cool. Like, Ram, to your point, you could just do this. Just and be like, look, I've put something in there for all of them. I bet I do that in Pico Pond. I'm sure I do, actually. That would be wild if I didn't. You can check the source code and confirm. Okay. As long as we're here, let's go ahead and make another pin. So I am now, again, in my Pico8 code. I'm going to do the last pin of the evening, pin score. Again, I'm going to keep it simple and just move right up. Before I even bother with this, just to keep things synced up, I'm going to hop over to main.javascript and just do the same thing here. Const pin score. These obviously don't need to have the same variable names. They are just integers. Just for my own mental well-being, I like to keep the variable names the same. And now that we know what we're going to do with this, so every frame, this is going to have the score written to the pin. And so this way we can access that from the JavaScript. We don't probably need to write to it in init, but I think it is good form. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. There's a few other places I'm going to want to write the score value. Every time score goes up, here it is. So every time the obstacle hits the bottom of the screen, our score increases by 1. That seems like a great opportunity for us to go ahead and write the game score to our score pin. And I am also going to do this when we start a new game, because that is going to kick the score back to 0. Technically in this game, the very next frame, because I'm starting the ball off screen so it resets quickly, it will update. But the vibe here is anytime we change the score value in our game is a great time for us to go ahead and write that to the pin as well. We could do this every frame if we want to. It kind of feels like needless overhead. I'd rather just do it on the frames where the score actually changes.
And then it's limited to 255 the way that everything is on Pico8. Like
that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, this score has a hard limit of 255, which is not reflected in the game, so you'll just get a rollover.
Yep.
But if you're playing this game up to 255, you're up to something. What you would do here, because we have 125 unused pins right now, is you would spread that value over multiple pins and then combine them in JavaScript if you need to store something larger.
Do the bit
That's certainly how you'd like do anything with strings or just kind of larger numbers in general or floating point numbers. You'd have to get a little clever, but honestly not very clever unless you need a huge amount of them.
But then even like my understanding is that the levels in the original Pac-Man are just a cycle of like 4 or 5, or it's like 3 mazes, I think. That when the speed and the difficulty increases as you get into higher levels. And I just think the 256th level, there just isn't, it can't get that far. And the game just kind of starts to eat itself, right? It's like,
I mean, basically what it's doing is it is poking into parts of memory it shouldn't be doing. Yeah. That's why you get those Pac-Man kill screens that are super unpredictable.
Yeah.
And like people are able to play through a few levels of those screens because it is somewhat controllable. But yeah, just no one was supposed to get that far in Pac-Man. And so it starts reading parts of memory that it's not supposed to be reading. And more critically, it starts writing to them. And you get some really cool glitch art. Okay. I made the pin, gave it initial value. I'm writing to it in start game, writing to it in game. Yeah, okay, cool. I think I have what we need here. Gonna load it, Pico8. I'm mostly running this just to like make sure I don't have an obvious typo. I obviously can't see any of this effect while working on it, which is the real downside of doing a JavaScript-enabled Pico8 game, is that to test it, you actually have to make a build, which is like annoying.
Right.
Yep, file exists, rock and roll, overwrite it. And over here, oh yeah, nothing obvious will have changed here either because we are now writing to a pin that we're not doing anything with. So let's go ahead, hop back to our index. I'm going to just add a div, which I will call score info. Just 1-0 in score. Okay. Yeah, I'll put some text in there just so I can like see it on screen. And then in main.js, I already added my pin, which is great. And I will go ahead and this time I actually kind of want to keep track of the actual web element there. So I'll make score info and I'll have it just start as null. And then when our game starts, when it finds the cart, that's when I can go ahead and find it. Document.get element by ID. And it is going to be score info. And then in update, this is assuming we found it. Update game stuff. So if cart has started, as in like we think we actually have values coming in,
sure.
I'll set score info dot inner HTML equal to score colon plus score. Okay, it's going to help a lot if I actually make my score variable. Let score equal Pico8 GPO, and I want pin score. There's a million ways you can set this up. I mean, as is the case with most things in code, right? Is like we could just check if score info is null or do any number of other things. But I'm just doing this because I have this little flag to tell me what's going on. So I'll save that. Refresh my page. Cool. So you can see here, nothing's being set to it because it hasn't started yet, hasn't found anything. So it's just whatever default thing I had there. But then once I start, fingers crossed, yeah, cool. So it changed to score 0. When I start, the ball starts dropping down, well, just the 1, and score goes up and up. And that's kind of it. I can still change this. But, oh, cool, Corey was in there taking a look at things. Saw the comment. Yeah, that's kind of it. This is going in both directions. Like I said, you can get a lot more complex highly recommend checking out here. You know what? I'll even put the tiny URL
Yeah.
on screen. Highly recommend checking out this post by Celeb. If I hope I'm getting their name right. If you want to do more of this, because this was a functional Twitter client that tragically doesn't work anymore.
Just the notion of reading Twitter.
Neither does the.
I used it a little bit. You could like search for hashtags and things. It was really
So
cool.
much. Could you find tweet cards?
No, it couldn't render. It was text only.
I really wonder about that too, because if you're juggling bytes to render text, now you're thinking about Unicode, and now you're in a whole kind of a place.
Listen, take a guess. I would imagine it doesn't render Unicode. I think it's probably just like anything that's not ASCII, forget it.
Oh yeah, I mean Pico8 cannot render Unicode.
Well, not with that attitude.
There's a lot of like standard characters that Pico8 cannot render.
DuckDuckGo, how to install HarfBuzz into Pico8.
I mean, listen, it's a deep rabbit hole for sure, but I don't know. There are probably limits on it. If nothing else, you have 128 by 128 pixels. But speaking of that number, it is just wild to me that the number of slots is 128. That is such a big number for Pico8.
Yeah.
Pico8
you're saying
stuff like
tweet cards for like the whole cart would be like 256 bytes or something.
Well, 280, yeah, to fit on Twitter. But I just like in general, like the number of like sprites you can have is lower than that. There's like hacky stuff you can do all over the place, but for whatever reason, it's just a big value and it lets you do a lot.
Yeah.
So there's that. If you check out Pico Pond, I have, two things. One, on the Emma blog, there is a really detailed post about how I set it up. And if you are curious, I have also all the code.
Oh, nice.
Available on GitHub, which is actually surprisingly short. You might be surprised. This is the back end. So this is what lives on Heroku, and then the front end is available as well. The Pico8 code especially is pretty detailed with the comments.
Oh, wow.
I had to try to make them as clear as possible since it's a pretty simple game and I wanted to use it for the blog post. I do want to give another shout out also to V. Buckingham and Vivian Schwartz for making Frog Chorus, which Pico Pond is 100% based on it. Of Frog Chorus. They love the experience. And then for the folks watching at home, thank you so much for stopping by. I mean, I'm happy to answer some questions, but I just want to mention that these Skillshares are something that we do as part of the Emma Technology Cooperative. So we are a worker-owned co-op doing tech freelance here in New York. If you have some big project that you need some creative technologists on, please get in touch. We're looking for work. You can find us at emma.coop, as well as a bunch of social stuff. Thank you, Ramsey, for making a snazzy new website for us. And if you are into this stuff, this was our second Skillshare. Previously, Ramsey demoed a really novel solution for syncing up web stuff and live performances over a streaming channel. So that is on our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Any questions or things y'all want me to go over?
No, I don't think so. I think we're good.
I'm still kind of reeling. It makes me think of there was a leak of original source code from Nintendo from the early 90s of a lot of like classic games, and it's called the Giga Leak. Not that you should be reading intellectually property infringing materials. Legal purposes out loud. But you can get it. And so I was like reading through the source code of Star Fox, which is one of my favorite games of all time. And it looks so much like the idea of like, oh, this byte, this is where we're going to put the health. This byte is where we're going to put the speed. You just have this sort of personal relationship with each byte in memory. It's like such a different idea of what computing is. It just blows my brain.
I mean, it is kind of fun to return to a simpler time, which has a million, like, it makes things so difficult, but occasionally you're just like, oh yeah, I can just do that. I mean, listen, you write the wrong byte, everything falls apart. Pico8 has so many cool little codes and things in it. It like really does make it feel like Commodore 64 stuff. Like there's like hidden styling when you print strings.
What?
But it gets so much more wild than that because you can use, so Pico8 does somewhat generative audio to like frogs have kind of different traits. And that is actually done using the print command to generate audio.
It's amazing.
Like if you tell Pico8 to print /AC ... E minus ... G, it will play a little triad.
Oh my god. Where's the live coding set of just Pico8 print commands?
You might be able to do
terrified.
this. So yeah, in I'm trying to figure out where in Frog or Pico Pond I'm doing that, but
Oh, right, because then you could just generate arbitrary strings, and
Yeah,
then you
so-
basically have a like an audio synthesis engine.
here is me creating the rivets in Pico Pond. Is I create a string, and then I append things to the string, and then finally I ask Pico8 to print the string using the shortened print command, which is a single question mark.
Via the print command lol. Very good.
Pico8.
Oh, that's so good.
It's great.
Every new thing I learn about this console, just
Yeah,
so deep-
it's a super fun place to play. So yeah, that's gonna do it. Let's try to keep this under an hour, I guess.
Yeah, we're right on time.
And Gwen, thank you so much for running the show. I really appreciate you getting all the
Absolutely.
streaming stuff set up.
Yeah, no problem. That might be our next Skillshare, is sort of demoing the streaming setup.
Yeah, not to spoil anything, but it's pretty rad.
I'm anticipating how you're going to stream the stream. Like how do you sort of
might need to be like we're gonna do a little cooking show magic where you're gonna stream and I'm gonna like build a stream from scratch. That's not the live one.
Yeah, that has to be it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely
join us
like,
next time once we figure out this existential.
sort of terrifying recursion.
Sphinx riddle.
I'll assemble even more laptops in my bedroom. All right. Bye.
All right. Have a good one, folks. Thanks
See
for
y'all.
stopping by.